Alright everyone, generally I don't criticize Donald Trump. I'm on the Trump train. I like most of his views. He's knocked it out of the park with some of them. For instance, border reform, Section 230 in the Internet Bill of Rights. So I have generally praise for Donald Trump. He's a good candidate. I'd love to have him back in office. I can't wait to see what he'd fucking do with tax reform because Biden's trying to steal all of our inflated money. But I must call him out on this one. I think he's making a mistake, link in the description, archived of course, by saying Bud Light isn't a woke company. You should buy Bud Light and buy the vaguely alcoholic piss water that can't even get you hammered. And they're not a woke company. Give them a second chance. End the boycott against Budweiser. Now, strategically, I understand why he's doing this. Anheuser-Busch disproportionately has funded Republican candidates. I understand totally the politically pragmatic strategy behind why he would make this particular comment on Truth Social. That I get. But you gotta understand, Donald, a lot of the people that are boycotting Bud Light are your fans. They don't want Bud Light. They're not gonna drink it anyway. A person's not gonna drink beer just because Donald Trump says that they should let off the company. By now, after months and months, they've already switched their brand loyalty in many cases. For instance, I'm not going to touch Bud Light. Not that I was ever really a beer drinker. I did drink it, but that was before they went woke. That was years ago, so I'm exonerated. We did not know that Bud Light was going to make the epic mistake of hiring Dylan Mulvaney, who then would proceed to drag the company and go into hiding practically and get 15 minutes of undeserved fame, pretending to be a little girl at one point, and it was creepy, but whatever. Anyway, as a non-beer drinker, I can't boycott the company. But if I was, like, let's say that I had been drinking Bud Light, the Dylan Mulvaney thing happens, and, you know, everyone's saying, fuck Bud Light, and I switched to Pabst Blue Ribbon. Blue Velvet, by the way, great movie. Very violent at times, a lot of sexual depravity, a lot of humorous parts, too. Basically like being on a heroin binge, I suppose, or something. It's like, watching that movie is like being high and drunk at the same time. But, and what was I saying? Anyway, if I was, though, a beer drinker, and I've already switched to something else, I'm not going to magically switch back just because Donald Trump says, oh, well, I've decided to give them a pardon, that they're not a woke company. And I understand that. It's not even that. Budweiser's not fully woke. They came out and effectively, completely backpedaled, apologized, and now they're putting up, like, you know, hillbilly ads and stuff like that, almost doing the self-deprecation thing. I think that they're trying to turn lemons into lemonade. Okay, we've humiliated ourselves, let's make fun of ourselves. People will therefore develop brand loyalty. They'll find it fun. It'll go viral, they'll find it funny. We're basically, we're embarrassed, and we're like, okay, yeah, I remember that time that we really fucked up. And it's like, sort of like when you're in your inner circle of friends, and some friend has done something totally stupid. They pissed on the electric fence. They tried to date the sheriff's daughter, something that's not a good idea. And years later, everyone just howls with laughter about it, and pats him on the back and says, oh, you remember that time, buddy boy? And it's funny. And the person's like, yeah, I remember. And at some point, you know, you're no longer embarrassed and it just becomes funny. I understand the branding involved. Their branding market has definitely improved since they decided to get Dylan Mulvaney aboard. But the thing is, it's just a commercial product, and not one that's even good for you, and not one that's even good. Like, if you're going to swill alcohol, and alcoholism is no joke, I've struggled with it myself, just to be clear, at the very least, you can have something that has flavor. Bud Light, okay, I'll give Bud Light one thing. There's a power outage due to a big storm and the water's not running, and you can basically substitute Bud Light for an extended period of time. It's water that a piece of yeasty bread vaguely was dipped in. That's what it tastes like. Okay, if it's ice cold and it's a real hot day, yeah, beer can be refreshing. And light beer, of course, is going to be more appropriate because, you know, you're sweating and shit and you need hydration and it's barely alcoholic. Although there are some beers, you can get a small beer, it's like 2% alcohol. That's even closer to water. Very often drunk in the Scandinavian countries, by the way, and then certain others. It used to be that small beer, or pop beer, I believe it was called, was used because in countries that didn't really consume wine, they would mix their wine with the water and it would kill bacteria in the water. It was literally to a purification system. because they didn't really have, I mean, they were drinking from the river, and they're like, oh, there's parasites and shit in there. And you add some alcohol. In the northern countries where it was all about beer, because they can't really grow grapes and shit like that so easily, they would use beer. They would make small beer. And so people constantly wandered around slightly tipsy, which is probably why you have a lot of malnutrition back in the medieval era and why you have weird folk tales. I suppose if the population is constantly inebriated, when you tell those campfire stories, things get going. It would also explain some of the wars that broke out. But Donald Trump is, I mean, you're being wrong. You're misreading the room. Your core fan base are the most likely to be participating in the Bud Light boycott. Trying to get them back aboard to buy more swill beer, number one, will only work to a limited degree. It's not going to alleviate the full boycott. Number two, it makes you look like you're cucking, actually. Sort of on the same par as gaining Mike Pence as a running mate or something like that. This is one of the only successful right-wing boycotts of a brand that's actually happened. Normally it's the left that does that. They organize heavily and centrally. They get the word out. They got their corporate partners, etc., etc. They're not banned online when they do things. And so they do boycotts and stuff. The right wing generally, until the last year or two, has been really reluctant to organize them, number one. And number two, when they do, it kind of falls flat. Oh my God, we reduced this brand's sales by 3%. With Bud Light, it's closer to 30. It was actually successful. They got crippled. Their asses were handed to them. You're asking people to alleviate one of the only successful examples of a boycott that is backlash against like the DEI equity thing. I think the punishment should continue. Again, I don't say that because I'm boycotting Budweiser. I can't boycott Budweiser. I don't drink beer. But if I was participating, if I had switched from Bud Light to, again, Pabst or Coors or so, I mean, they're all woke, so it doesn't really make a difference. Some local microbrew. Well, they're probably woke too here in the state of Vermont, generally speaking. I start drinking only Long Trail Ale, which, as far as beers go, is pretty good, actually. Or Magic Hat from up in Burlington. I guarantee their company's woke. Look at the management. I'm not magically going... After months of drinking that particular alcohol, I've probably developed a taste for it. And I switched to something that I found tasty, because, you know, you don't want to drink something disgusting. If I liked it more than Bud Light, and I'm not looking at the cost comparatively, and it will be similar to Coors or any of these others, Busch or something, why would I switch back? What would be the point? Maybe I like the new beer more. Coors tastes even more like water. Basically, I mean, you might as well just literally drink tap water, because that's basically what you're getting. You're not going to get drunk off that shit so easily unless you're fucking 10 years old and you're raiding your dad's fridge or something like that. His fridge, his secret fridge in the garage behind the plywood or something like that. How do you even get drunk off that? Like, I've seen people get all sorts of, like, weird and wasted and they're drinking light beer, and it's like, how? Physically, how? You should be pissing the alcohol out about as fast as you can even imbibe it. You shouldn't even be able to get to the legal limit for driving. And you drink one of those, what are you at, 0.03 or something like that? Maybe, on a good day. Again, if it's hot and you're really, really sweaty, it's basically a substitute for water. You know, you chill it, you put it on ice, and you sit out there and pretend to be cool or something like talking about cars or guns or something like that, something real manly. Well, that's the problem. Bud Light took a brand that was associated with sort of the rednecky manliness thing, and they pissed it away because they had some dude who cosplays as a fucking little girl in a pink dress as one of their brand representatives. Well, that's not going away, no matter what Donald Trump happens to say or think. So, Trump takes an L on this one. I happen to disagree with him significantly. That's about all. Peace out.